Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff, and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn, and...
I'm Joe.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about remote viewing, and you suggested it. So what made you suggest remote viewing? Is this something you've been interested in?
No, I just thought of it. But I mean, way back when everything was more mysterious, it seemed like an interesting topic, Like,
wait a minute. When everything was more mysterious?
well, when you're a kid, everything was more
see.
mysterious,
Okay.
I mean, you haven't have anything figured out, and so you hear something like,
Yeah.
and so it's cool, I remember having that too with UFOs, but I think it was like that is a more impenetrable topic, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like you don't go anywhere. You can see some old pictures, but whereas with like remote viewing, those kind of things, those are things you can actually try.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true, and I found some really good hints for it. So, remote viewing, if you don't know, has been described as seeing remote or hidden objects clairvoyantly. I think I say that wrong. I think it's clairvoyantly. I always say clairvoyantly. I think it's clairvoyantly with the inner eye or in alleged out-of-body travel. So clairvoyance comes from the French word clair, meaning clear, and voyance, meaning vision, so it means clear vision. It is the psychic ability to gain information about an object, person, location, or physical event through extrasensory perception. So any person who's claimed to have such an ability is said to be clairvoyant, one who sees clearly. And a psychic is a person who has and uses psychic abilities. Psychic abilities are also known as extrasensory perception. But while all clairvoyants are psychics, not all psychics are clairvoyant. Does that make any sense?
So if I could read your mind, but I couldn't see what was in the fridge right now without looking, then I'd be psychic but not clairvoyant, right? I mean, that's how I've pictured it. You're either seeing something at a distance or you're doing some kind of weird stuff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess, that's pretty good. All right. First of all, the most interesting thing I found out about this, and you probably already knew this or you found out about it, is the Pentagon actually conducted experiments into remote viewing. It was called the Stargate Project, which, by the way, is no connection to the film or TV franchise.
Although I do wonder if they got the name, if they thought the name up.
It's possible. It was also known as Sunstreak or Grill Flame, among other names, just names they gave it. It was, they developed it, I think, as an attempt to spy on the Soviets using a combination of remote viewing and controlled out-of-body experiences. The only controversy about this, now we know that actually happened. The Pentagon had Stargate. The only controversy is whether or not they succeeded.
Yeah. So from what I saw, supposedly they had this 65% accuracy threshold. So the participants in the program had to, the clairvoyants, the remote viewers had to have an accuracy of over 65%. So 65% of the time they would have had to get it right or produce something that was useful, I guess. But then I saw that the program was basically shut down because it was nothing. It was very rarely useful. So although some sources, dubious sources, said the 65% threshold was passed.
Yeah, that's what I read.
It also is kind of suspicious that then they shut it down.
Okay, well, they said that they were getting closer to 25% success rate, maybe 30% success rate. But here's the thing. Those were particularly accurate, successful situations. If you can 30% of the time have a very accurate...
So typically you measure these things, the accuracy, relative to someone who is, like, for instance, in this case, someone who is not a remote viewer. So, like, if it was, I'm going to flip a coin, and you're going to predict if it's heads or tails, and you get it 75% of the time, where chance is 50% of the time, that really strongly indicates you have some real ability to predict what the outcome of the phenomenon, the experiment will be. So in this case, like, from what I saw, they would do different tasks, but one of them was they would give the remote viewer a coordinate, and ask then what they see in the remote viewing process. That's I mean, I wouldn't expect chance accuracy to be high at all.
Right.
So those numbers depend on what the chance accuracy is. I mean, how interesting it is. It might be that, like, for instance, I'm going to use my remote viewing powers to see what's in the refrigerator. Is there a bell pepper in the refrigerator? Yes. Now, what's the chance accuracy? Let's say I'm not a remote viewer. What's the chance accuracy that I get it right, that there's a bell pepper in the refrigerator?
Well, come on.
Exactly. So the chance accuracy is probably relatively high. If 90% of the time there really is a bell pepper in the refrigerator, and 90% of the time the person says, yes, there is,
so that wouldn't be a good result.
Yeah, but if it was like the person asks you, is there or isn't there a rock in the refrigerator? And you can guess it 9 times out of 10, so you're accurate. So the chance accuracy is really low. Like, which of these refrigerators has a rock in it? Your chance accuracy is probably going to be no better than random chance. And you just randomly select. A random number generator selects. Whereas a remote viewer would be able to more accurately, even if there was an anomaly of 1% in the statistics, that might be consistent anomaly. That might be very useful.
Okay, well, the Pentagon said the viewer's advice in the Stargate project was always so unclear and non-detailed that it had never been used in any intelligence operation. However, eventually the Pentagon transferred the Stargate program to the CIA, which supposedly claimed that the program hadn't produced anything useful and shut it down. However, the CIA analysis did say that remote viewing had produced results that were better than chance, which is as good as admitting that there's either something real going on or their analysis was wrong.
Yeah, so if their methodology they were using to conduct the experiment, or how they were doing their statistics or whatever, if there was bias there, which I would expect the people who are interested in running such programs to be biased, I'd expect the people who are participants in the program to be biased. It's really hard to eliminate that bias from those sorts of experiments, but it will show up in a not accurate measure of the accuracy or whatever.
Some of the remote viewers who worked on that project claimed that the analysis which got the program shut down was biased and inaccurate, and that it was a whitewash meant to give them an excuse to stop remote viewing, or at least claim they stopped. But they don't necessarily think that they've ever stopped. There is, I think it's at Stanford. Let me look and see.
Yeah, Stanford.
Their SRI.
Yeah, stands for Research Institute.
Yeah, okay. In the early 1970s, Harold Puthoff
I think it's
Puthoff?
Puthoff.
and Russell Targ joined the Electronics and Bioengineering Laboratory at Stanford, where they initiated studies of the paranormal that were at first supported with private funding from the Parapsychology Foundation and the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I don't know why I just like that.
Noetic, yeah.
Sciences.
Noology and
Yeah.
is the study of knowledge, right?
I don't know. It's Noetic, Noetic. In the early 1970s, the physicists John Taylor and Eduardo Belanovsky, that's a hard one for my tongue, tested the psychic Matthew Manning in remote viewing, and the results proved completely unsuccessful. So, they're doing stuff, but they weren't getting very good results. Sometimes I think that one of the problems with how they test these things is through testing, it makes it almost impossible to get accurate results or accurate data.
That is,
It's like your thing with the sending the atom out or whatever it was, the particle to
what?
you send the particle to the thing with holes in it, and if it goes through this, if you're watching
Oh, you're
it,
talking about what I was describing, quantum physics and
Yes.
and the observer's effect.
yes. So the observer's effect, I think, messes it up somehow.
Well, consider this. You're talking about usually when you do an experiment, you want to completely isolate the environment of the experiment from anything that might change the statistics of the results of the experiment. The problem with remote viewing and anything like that, so remote viewing is the pull. There could correspondingly be the push, where you are remotely interacting with things, like telekinesis, another fringe topic like that. The problem with those is that you never can separate the experimental environment from other facts. So the remote viewer, if they're in a room and they're not supposed to know whatever, the experimenter is walking into a different room to set up his part of the experiment. Mm-hmm. And then the participant, he already knows what the experimenter is doing. It would be completely impossible to isolate any information from a remote viewer. I mean, theoretically, they could know everything. And correspondingly, the push part, like someone who's telekinetic, could just influence anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that is one issue with the entire concept of doing science with. And I've described this before, but it's worth it saying again. There's, with any global change, there's an equivalent local change that produces the same effect. So, for instance, if I take a person and they see the sky has suddenly turned green, that's a global change, but it's equivalent to if I just tweak their brain, a local change to see the sky turn green or whatever I said. There are all sorts of little things like that if you start messing with the fundamental nature of the universe, then all sorts of other things don't really work very well.
And so the fact that the remote viewing experiments have historically been criticized because for lack of proper controls, and it's not repeatable, and they say there's no scientific evidence that remote viewing exists, and it's considered a pseudoscience. But for that very reason, I think that you can't throw it in with testing whether gravity exists. You can't do that because it's something beyond our current understanding.
Yeah, and another thing, that problem gets even worse when you consider remote viewing with a time separation. So if the remote viewer is tasked with seeing the their own accuracy rating of this experiment in the future, what number are they going to give?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
But that's some of the claims, that people can look into the future.
But here's the thing. There have been enough times that people have looked into the future. That maybe they haven't verified in a lab, but
Uh-huh.
individuals have had experiences where in their mind's eye, they saw that there was a rock in the refrigerator, metaphorically,
In the future.
in the future, that there would be a rock in the refrigerator, or that, you know, whatever those things are, they have done that. It doesn't work in the lab. I don't know why it doesn't work in the lab, but there have been enough people that have said this, that there's something to it. There has to be something to it.
Well, I know this, that famous people have been tested in an isolated lab, and despite them saying they would get high accuracy rating or whatever, show that the phenomenon is, you know, real, and they're you know, it's serious about it, that the phenomenon doesn't show up. It's just like random chance, or like, for instance, they did the test with the guy, I can't remember his name, doing telekinetic stuff. So he's behind a plate glass or whatever. They test him for magnets, you know, it's an isolated setup, and he can't move the thing in the plate glass. But then he says he can move the thing outside of a lab. So a non-isolated setup. Consider, though, if the participant in the experiment can really do it, you know, do whatever, but also the experimenters can do it, they just don't know they could do it. And so when they all get together and do the experiment, the participant can't do the thing.
Okay,
why? Because the guy is blocking him or something.
That's an interesting thought. Okay, so
And I don't necessarily believe in any of this, but it's just showing that, goes to show there's a lot of issues with doing an experiment when you can't really isolate the experiment.
when you can't isolate what actually took place. You know, you can't even isolate what the results were, because it is so foggy outside of our understanding. So the history of the study of these sorts of things like remote viewing started by major scientists of their day in the mid-19th century. Early researchers included Michael Faraday, Faraday cage, right? Alfred Russel Wallace, Rufus Osgood Mason, and William Crookes. Their work predominantly involved carrying out focused experimental tests on specific individuals who were thought to be psychically gifted. The reports said that they apparently had very successful tests, but all they got was skepticism from the scientific community. In the 1930s, J.B. Rhine expanded the study of paranormal performance into larger populations. He used standard experimental protocols with unselected human subjects. Now, unselected means just randomly choosing people. So it's not like people said, hey, I've got psychic ability, I'm going to do this.
If they did a good job with the random selection, they should be really random.
Okay. But as with the earlier studies, Rhine was reluctant to publicize his work too early because he didn't want the criticism from mainstream scientists.
Now, I should say, everyone should be skeptical, but you shouldn't just, if there's evidence for something and you are just trying to debunk the evidence, you probably, if it's a real thing and there's evidence for it and you're just trying to debunk it, you're probably not going to see the evidence.
Well, so that skepticism, according to some different remarks made in articles, contributed to difficulty having accurate peer review, research funding. It virtually ensured that paranormal studies remained a fringe area of scientific exploration and research. But by the 1960s, because there was this counterculture going on and there was, a lot of new age thinking, the popularity of the human potential movement, which is to look for what we are capable of outside of what we've come to expect that we're capable of, it provoked a mini renaissance that renewed public interest in consciousness studies and psychic phenomena and helped to make financial support more available. In the early 1970s, that's when Puthoff and Targ joined that lab at Stanford, and they started doing their research. Then in the 70s, the physicists Taylor and Balanovsky, they started doing their research. And so then that's about when the Pentagon got in on it and started doing their thing with the Stargate project. So they kind of gave it a run, but because they're coming at it from this classical scientific point of view, I think it was doomed to failure because of some of those things you mentioned, like maybe it requires some other interaction that has not been identified, and so it's not there, or who knows what.
How would you propose? So the trick, what people really want is to be able to confidently say, if you do X, you get Y with this probability. How would you propose that they otherwise really identify that relationship and the chances?
Okay, so this is counter to all your scientific thinking going on in your head. I don't think we need to do experiments as a formal thing. I think that individuals should do their own damn experiments.
I mean, so for instance, the military wants to build super soldiers who can remote view and telekinetically, like, explode cars and stuff. How do they go about doing that?
Well,
because an institution like that would be trying to get to that point.
Okay, so if that's their goal, then you just start inviting people to apply for that position, and you test them, and if they don't do it, out. Test somebody else out, and
it's reasonable.
And eventually, maybe you'll find somebody who can do it. Maybe you won't, but I think that this focus and this emphasis on having to formally identify and quantify some phenomena like this is ridiculous. There's this guy who he said some cool things. Let me see. So, well, first of all, this guy, his name's Robert Stewart, and he's got a PhD in astronomy and theology, which is, in my mind, an odd combination of things.
Astrology?
Astronomy.
Astronomy.
And theology from Berkeley. He said, during my time, it was called Sunstreak. He's talking about that government program. And it was funded by the Scientific and Technical Intelligence Directorate. He said the DIA, but I think he meant the CIA, unless the DIA is something else.
DIA, Department of
Intelligent
Agents.
Adversity. I don't know. I don't know. In 1991, most of the contracting for this is him talking. In 1991, most of the contracting for the program was transferred from SRI, which is the formal name of that study group, to Scientific Applications International Corporation, with Edwin May controlling 70% of the contractor funds and 85% of the data. Its security was altered from Special Access Program to Limited Dissemination, and it was given its final name of Sunstreak. They tell the public the results were inconclusive, but clandestine paranormal units still exist in the field around the world. So he says he did it, he was part of that, and it's still going on. It's just not there, and it's not.
It's interesting because that is what they've said about UAP stuff.
Yeah, somebody said, okay, let me see. The military only started investigating it because they'd heard rumors about the Soviets doing the same thing, and we don't have any definitive proof that Stargate actually accomplished anything. The military officials who supervised the program were true believers, not skeptics. There you go, Joe. And the scientists they had running it were even more dedicated to the cause. That's not a situation that's suited to producing reliable, trustworthy results. By far the most likely scenario is that their experimental controls were sloppy and the results were fudged, whether intentionally or otherwise. Okay, I'll believe that. But a few years ago, the same thing was said about UFOs and the new category of UAPs. The exact same thing. They're looking into this, but they're all true believers. So they're fudging their results. They're accepting things that are not scientifically vetted. So that doesn't matter to me one whit. My non-science brain, my woo brain says, so freaking what?
So instead of looking at it from a point of view of a scientist or a reductionist scientist, look at it from the point of view of a pragmatist. So that means, what can you get out of it? And like the most hard to the metal, what can you get out of it? So like, I want to be a remote viewer so that I can detect all the rocks and all the refrigerators.
Oh, I think it has greater uses than that.
So, or I want to assemble a team so that I can go to Vegas and win big.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real, it's like, I don't even give a shit about the phenomena. I want what I can get out of the phenomena.
Okay, Joseph Diamond, he's a software engineer, and he practices remote viewing with what he says is a high degree of success. And he uses a sort of automatic writing or drawing to get his visions. So his process consists of asking someone else to find a completely random image from a magazine or a newspaper that he's never looked at, or a random image online. He has them fold it up and put it somewhere out of sight. No clues are given to him or any indication of what the target is. And the assistant themselves doesn't even need to have looked at the picture. They can rip it out without looking at it and fold it up and go and put it somewhere. So you could even have a computer generated image so that nobody knows what the image is. Then that would kind of ensure that there's no telepathic communication between the two people or other subconscious process occurring that would make it even more mysterious. So one theory he has on how this process works is that you're transcending time and space and somehow gaining knowledge from yourself in the future after the target is revealed. So that's what he thinks. That does sort of align with the theory that time is an illusion and not actually linear and maybe just a human construct. That may not be a scientific belief, but that is certainly a belief.
There's some like physicists who believe the same thing.
The whole thing sounds pretty far-fetched, like remote viewing sounds kind of far-fetched, and it's mind-boggling, but he really believes that he has good success, and so he created a website to teach the basics to people.
How much does it cost?
Probably costs a lot. So it says, go to the tools page where you can generate a completely random image. The image will not be revealed until you click open. Okay, I'm clicking on this and we'll see what happens. It's not found. Okay. But we can try this.
You could generate.
We could try this. We could totally try
It just
this.
generates an image?
And all it does is generate an image, which you don't see until you say you've drawn the picture.
So you draw whatever you see and then
you draw what you see. And then the picture shows. So we could actually do that relatively simple. If you made something that just said random image and have it so that the website or the web page is minimized so we can't see it, and then we draw it and see what we come up with. So here are some ways people say to elicit remote viewing. And some of these things go along with sleep, stages of sleep, or stages,
like,
different patterns of
stage of
thought.
sleep where you are seeing images but still awake.
Yeah. So it says set an alarm that will wake you in a subtle way, so gently, for early morning when you would be close to a dream state. And it's just like lucid dreaming. So you want to try and get into that state of mind. And another way is to stay awake until the morning, until early morning, like sunrise, or for even a day, so that you're like almost hallucinating from exhaustion. And when you're in those states of mind, try the methods like the picture method, or something like that, or something that generates an image. Or
so the idea is that you are in a more susceptible state.
Get out of the way of your rational mind. It says try automatic writing during those times, which is actually automatic drawing. For most of the people I saw, automatic writing would be where you would write down the words that describe what you're seeing. Automatic drawing would be you actually draw it. I did see some interesting ones. One was a photograph of two chairs. One chair was facing towards the front and the other chair was off to the side. And a kid did this. And the kids, he didn't know what it was, so he drew a toilet and something else off to the side. So the positioning was right. But I mean, in my mind, drawing a toilet when it's a chair is a very good success. That's in my mind.
How would
I don't
you
know
go
if scientists
about
would agree with that.
Finding what the random chance rate is? So, like, how would you have people get it wrong, essentially?
I don't know, but if you get greater than 30% right, you're already in the top thing of the military program. If you got 65% right, you can consider that an excellent result.
Through what you saw, was there anyone who were trying to teach like how to predict a coin flip, because that's
I didn't see
really
that
easy.
at all.
It's 50%. You should converge on 50%. You won't get it right more than 50%. You won't get it wrong more than 50%.
So you would flip the coin.
And then you'd predict what you see. You draw, it's either an eagle or
I
a
think
man's
the
head.
thing about drawing, though, especially one of the things they said is to draw with your non-dominant hand, is to
break out of
not be using your left brain, not be using your rational brain. And you should be doing this with the perspective of seeing in your head, not trying to go there, but just trying to see the thing, the place, the whatever, the image, whatever those things are. And the bottom line is, nobody's going to believe you. Everybody said that. No one's going to believe you. This is only for yourself. You're just doing it for yourself. So this is an experiment I think we should do right now.
If you go to Vegas and you draw what card it is, are you gonna win it big?
I don't know.
Like, if what's the use of any of this if all it is like you sitting alone and you can't tell anybody? You know what I
Well,
mean?
you could tell people, but they're not
It's
going to believe
beyond
you.
the implication
Okay,
of
but
whether
wait
it's
a
a
minute.
real phenomenon or not.
But wait a minute. It's a skill, just like any skill. Okay, what good is it to be able to draw very well? What good is
You
that?
could sell that.
Most people who can draw very well never sell their drawings. They are doing
You could impress people.
They are doing it for their own pleasure.
Okay.
So
but there are
let's-
also people who do it for XYZ
You're
reason.
absolutely correct. But let's do this for our own pleasure.
Okay, but again, people are their brains are so polluted by the memes in their culture that it's like the energy thing. I'm always complaining about people saying energy, right?
Yes.
The reason they say energy is they're trying to communicate something that they learned mimetically from other people in their culture.
Yeah.
New Age. It's like if I'm trying to communicate psychic stuff, telepathy, remote viewing, clairvoyance, whatever, I'll say New Age, and that's also like drugs and tie-dye, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If I took a caveman and I put him down and he discovered, if Oonga Boonga, me look in head at refrigerator, I see rock. It's beyond like what you call it. It's beyond how it works. It's beyond statistics and whatever. If he can walk down the street and he can there's a rock in that refrigerator, I'm going to go chow down, then that's useful for him. Science is sort of supposed to be like that, where it's entirely pragmatic. We're determining what we can get out of things, or what we can know based on, what we've observed. If I go to Vegas and he's rolling the dice, and I say, whatever, hit me, or however it works.
I don't know how it works.
Then I should make more money if I can see the result beforehand.
Okay, I'll buy that. Except that I think the majority of skills and talents that people develop in their lifetime are not utilized for what they thought they were going to be utilized for.
That's totally fine for them. It's like secretly I can like make a trans-dimensional portal and go have fun in another dimension. Okay, whatever. But also maybe I also want to make trans-dimensional portals so I can steal people's milk from their fridges.
Maybe you'd be really, really amazing at remote viewing, and then you could go to Vegas and you could win big.
Why hasn't anyone done that?
Maybe
they have.
Some of them have.
Okay, so why
I know
can't
someone who does poker.
military? Why can't the military make a super soldier? That's what they want. They want a soldier who can see anything that's going to happen before it happens. Tell them what's over there in Russia.
Okay, pause the thing.
Okay.
I'm going to go get paper and pencils or
Okay.
pens, and we're going to do this. So how are we going to come up with a random picture?
One person will select it on the internet, and the other person will. And now we're both gonna draw it. I literally have no idea what the book is. I saw vaguely a color when you opened it. I know it's sort of brownish.
Don't look. Don't look.
No, let's do the book over
You
there.
want to do that book?
I mean, I have literally no idea what you said. Landscapes, okay?
Well, I don't know. It's called Wasatch Mountains.
So I'm assuming landscapes. It doesn't even matter if you know, right? Are you really gonna get it right?
I have no idea because I have no idea what's in that book. I don't even know if there's a picture on every page. Okay, I'm going to start this again. Oh, it is.
No, it is
recording.
starting. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So what I've done is I've chosen a book that I knew had pictures in it,
Uh-huh.
and I've opened it up facing downward so that neither Joe nor I could see what the picture, I opened it to, and I set it down face down on the floor so the pictures or picture that's on that page.
There might be multiple.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
I bought that book a long time ago, and I haven't looked at it since I bought it. So we're going to draw what we see, what we think is.
We're obviously not hallucinating, hopefully. And we're not half asleep and whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, we're supposed to do it with our non-dominant hand.
Oh, okay. I just really hope I don't get any of this ink on
My
it.
non-dominant hand is really, really stupid.
Well, that's the point. So if you have a sense of anything, you put that down, right?
Yeah. This is weird. Tell me when you're done. Okay, so there's a fault in this experiment, and the fault is this. We could be picking up something from each other.
That's true. I
Okay.
can see your thing now,
See
but
what yours looks like.
it's small because I figured we'd do
There
more.
are some similarities here.
That's true.
That's interesting. And the fact that that's kind of jaggy and that's kind of jaggy.
It feels like nothing, and then it's like you almost have, there's a line here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So you just draw that line.
It was interesting. So mine.
And it seems like there's color to it, you know?
Yeah.
But obviously I can't do color with an ink pen.
Mine, it looks sort of like
Arrowhead mushroom.
an arrowhead mushroom, and yours looks more like an amoeba with a smiley face.
Do you see the frame though?
Yes, you did put a frame around it. I did.
But you see, I put not a square frame.
Okay. Not even remotely.
Remotely.
Not even
Well, I don't
vaguely.
know. I mean, if I had to say,
No, I say yours is like kind of like that.
no, the other side. If I had to say, this would be that cloud, this would be this contour.
Oh yeah.
That would be that.
Oh yeah,
top
you're
of that,
right. And
that,
this would be kind of this dark
that.
area in
but
here.
notice what I'm doing. I'm looking at this,
That is true.
and I'm looking at that.
That is true. Okay. So that.
Well, there's leaves. kind of.
That. Jaggy. What's the
Yeah.
little X? I don't know.
Those flowers spot.
I don't know.
I mean,
It definitely doesn't match that one. So let's just open another.
rotate it.
Actually, it matches better like that. That, there, this area here is more like that shape.
Yeah. What's the X?
There is a dot there. I don't know. Okay, so now what I'm going to do
So
is I'm going to open another
compare
page.
the aspect ratio. This,
Yours is more like that.
I think it's more like the left.
Really?
That's slightly, yeah,
Oh,
look,
yeah, I
it's
guess.
slightly more square. Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to open another page. I'm not looking at random, and we're going to see if ours match that page.
Good point.
Not at all.
Well,
Not at all. Okay, it's possible. No, not because there's no jaggies. The jaggies I felt very strongly about.
I do have to say the other one. Well, yeah. Okay, look at this. This contour, that contour, this and that.
But not
mean-
not those two things, which seem pretty specific.
Yeah.
Not this, which I guess it could be that.
Could be.
But what would this be? I don't know. Okay, well, I think this is a skill. I don't think it's a. I think most everything that we talk about, if it's outside of accepted science, if it's possible for one person, then it's a skill that other people can learn. I really absolutely believe that.
Okay, but consider some people can run just inherently way, way faster than other people. Some people might be extraordinarily good at this. Some people might have a lot of difficulty.
Yeah, this is true. But most people, as long as they are whole and healthy, can run.
They can do approximately
Yes.
what everyone else can do. Yeah.
Well, I want to play around with this more. I think that was fun, but you have to come up with a random picture generator that...
Problem with random picture generators is you can generate very simple things very easily, but to do more complicated things, you have to do more complicated things. Like, for instance, I could generate like pictures of like circles and lines. That's super easy. If I wanted to generate like a realistic scene, I'd have to take those circles and lines and put them through Stable Diffusion, which isn't that big of a deal because I wrote an API thing to do that. But it would be a lot. It'd take a lot longer.
Okay, well, I don't want you to...
You'd have to do it beforehand.
I don't want you to put
generate
yourself to a lot of trouble.
No, it'd be very easy.
So maybe the thing to do is, except that, okay, I was going to say take tarot cards or some kind of divination card because they have pictures on them.
So one issue with the picture thing is you have in your brain just the information for what a generic picture looks like.
Right.
And you're gonna use that. Even if there's psychic phenomena going on, you're still going to be able to...
That's why I think it needs to be a simple object that you're focusing on. Because those pictures were so complicated, it's kind of like the astrology thing that used to be in the newspaper back in the day. And you'd read your astrology prediction for the day and you'd think, yeah, that fits perfectly with me and this day. But then if you read another one, you could also make it fit.
Yeah.
And so we were even doing that with these. We were making them
it
fit.
fit.
Now I do think that the pictures that were chosen randomly and the initial ones, I do think that they had more in common with the pictures we drew than the other one that I chose at random. But to test it, you really have to have...
If you want to remove the subjectivity, you use something that's definitive, like a coin flip. You just flip a coin. Super boring, by the way.
Except
flip a coin. Don't look at it. Which is it? Record the answer. Record the result.
Except that I think that
it's super boring.
It's super boring, and the process of drawing with your left hand, and those other suggestions of trying to be in that dream state.
How about this? You flip a coin. You flip it like 16 times, and you flip 16 coins, and then you arrange them 4 by 4. And beforehand, you draw, or like you do that and you don't look, and then you draw the shape of where the heads are in the 4 by 4 grid of coins. And then you compare, then you can basically say, oh, here's this, section of heads, and you know what I mean?
Okay, so here's the problem. You can't do the flipping of the coins because you flip the coin and then you set it down. You can tell what's, so somebody else has to do it behind something. So to do this on your own, because no one's going to believe you and nobody cares, to do this on your own, you have to have a way to be able to draw a random picture. By draw, I mean like drawing a card out of a deck or opening a book or whatever those things are, and then doing it. And I'm going to look at different ways to do it. I think this is fascinating. I just think this is fascinating. And I think that we did do something interesting here.
Okay, so if you have a subjective effect, there's going to be a bias. You might be looking at really low correlation between the actual data you produced and your prediction of the data. Might be tiny. So you have to somehow...
That's why it's got to be really simple shapes.
Like a triangle at this here and then a square over here.
Yeah, like there's going to be 3 shapes and what's the relationship to each other or something like that.
Picture 3 shapes in your head, okay? And draw it.
Right now?
Yeah. So you're not comparing it against anything. I know what it looks like in my head.
Okay.
Here's mine. So you notice what we did?
There's not very much variety here.
So we did a triangle, we did a circle, and we did a square.
Yes.
And they're arranged in a triangle.
Yes.
No overlaps.
Yes? Yes, so this is not going to work. Okay, so it has to be a simple object. Simple
Now keep in
object.
mind that if you say remote viewing is a thing, then in the future when we have the thing that generates the image, that might be one of the things. And
That
we
is
just
true.
remote view.
Okay.
It's an issue.
One last experiment and then we'll end.
Okay.
I'm going to get the tarot cards.
Okay. Presumably it's like you predict what the tarot card is. So you have to draw those or just write it. What?
Okay, so we know what tarot cards look like.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what we're going to do is we're going to draw,
What we think the card is that you drew.
yes, what we chose. We're going to draw what we chose.
What you selected, randomly selected.
Hopefully randomly selected.
I think when you shuffle cards, there's sections that are not random, but you don't know what they are. So
Okay,
they are
so
random.
these cards were not in order. You know, they were.
Yeah, it doesn't
they were
matter.
well shuffled.
I don't know anything about the cards.
Okay, so you can pick a card
Set it here.
and set it there. And
I'll
now,
set it here.
now we're going to draw what we think is on the card.
Okay. I literally haven't. Okay, I should do the thing where I'm listening to my subconscious.
You done?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, in the
How do you
fairness
know
of
when
full
you're done?
disclosure,
Uh-huh.
I have looked at these cards before,
Yeah.
but I have not looked at them
I
so
think
often
I have
that
it too, but
I kind of have a general idea of what the design of these are. They're steampunk tarot cards, and I have a general idea of what tarot cards contain, but other than that, I don't know. Okay, so here's my picture. Yours looks like death. Or yeah.
Interesting. We both
Oh,
wrote a
yeah.
number to the side,
Oh my God, we did. How weird.
but the different numbers.
They're different numbers. I put a 5. Joe put a 7. Joe's reminds me of the tower.
You know, that was just me thinking, oh, it's probably this. But then I started saying, okay, I should add details that my brain randomly comes up with. So I added other details. But the general shape is that's my best guess what it will look like.
And
That's a
mine,
guess. That's
mine I
not
think that this was
remote
more a
viewing.
conscious thing because I drew cups. So I don't know. Okay.
What?
It's the 3 freaking cups. It's the 3 of cups.
Oh, wow, you're right.
It's the 3 of cups. I got it right. I got
And look
it
at
right.
the wallpaper.
Oh, look at the lines.
Yeah.
Joey, that is not happenstance. I frickin' got it right.
You did get the number wrong.
I wrote 5 over here, but there's 3 cups.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
And I put these lines, and there's lines in the paneling.
These diagonal lines,
What are the diagonal?
and this diagonal isn't there. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all wrong.
No.
So that's cool.
Hot damn, Joey.
Yeah,
I got it right. That is phenomenal. That was cool. That is so cool. Do it again and again and again. It was
Yeah.
so neat.
Okay, here's another question. Could you do it just like you're doing it for fun, do it, see that you've done it wrong or you didn't get a good result, and then predict, I'll change something I did and that will lead to me getting a better result later. Like, for instance, I'm playing basketball and I throw the ball and I notice like my arm is at a weird angle or something. And I can say, okay, later I'll have my arm at a different angle. And then later I do that and I get a better result.
Well, don't you think that's how anybody increases their skills?
So could you identify a change in your own behavior to improve if you get a
well, let's
negative
just find out, shall we?
do it. And because here's the thing, pragmatism. I'm a pragmatist, meaning if you can not proving it, no, not disproving, not debunking, not whatever. If you can go to Vegas, if everyone comes over and you can show them your trick and everyone's impressed, and you can confidently say beforehand, you know what I mean? Like if every time you did that, you were right, then it's beyond science or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the point that it's useful. That's the point that's what you're going for. You're saying, okay, if I do it again, I'm going to get it right.
Okay, so I challenge you to think of other ways besides going to Vegas and gambling and making a lot of money. Other ways that such a skill could be useful. Now, we're not cavemen, and they don't eat rocks anyway, Joey, so the whole thing about the rock in the refrigerator was bizarre. But if we were, for instance, sitting in here and it was like, oh, there's a dog digging in the garden.
Yeah, that could be useful.
That could be useful. Or, I wonder where I left the key.
Yeah, and so you sit down, you draw the location, you go to that spot, and there it is.
So there
and you
are
can
uses.
confidently say beforehand, yes, I'll do this process, and it will, I mean, like 80% sure it will tell me where the keys are.
Okay, so
and they're in the fridge under the rock.
There are practical uses for this skill.
Okay, so why people say like it doesn't exist, it's when they do it scientifically, they're simulating a practical use.
Yes.
And nobody can demonstrate that it's practical.
There probably has to be some connection between your emotional response to it. Like, who cares if, like...
If you select a number...
Yeah, I mean, who cares? Like, the whole thing about flipping a coin has always... And believe me, my brothers forced us to endure these experiments numerous times when I was a child. It is absolutely meaningless to my brain.
Whereas you did that and you did have an emotional reaction. So maybe it's the emotional reaction. That would be really hard to test.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, oh, when they get it wrong, you have to bring in a tiger or put a snake on their head or something. You know what I mean? Would you go to Vegas and win big?
You're just trying to find a way to monetize this.
No, really. I mean, what use is it? What use is it other than a parlor trick?
I don't know. But obviously I have a gift for it, so I'm going to develop it.
Yes, develop it. If you can get it so you can consistently get the thing right, so beforehand you can predict that you will be right, then go to Vegas.
That was really fun, and I suggest that you try it too, because it was, you can't even believe how exciting that was. See, I got it right.
You got it right.
Yeah, I got it totally right. Okay, let us know if you try this experiment. Let us know how it goes. I'm thrilled by this. I am thrilled. Our contact information is in the show notes. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, like about how you tried this, send it to us. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run.